In my weekly troll of newspapers for my Monday radio slot, I was very much inclined to skip the court reports because I found them so very depressing. But that was before Judge Barney McElholm came to the bench and became the most quoted lawman in the Northwest. He tempers justice with a judicious mix of compassion, wry wit, wisdom, and plain speaking, and very refreshing it is. Judge McElholm has been an important champion of change in dealing more effectively with the problem of domestic violence, and has recently taken on the role of chair of the Foyle Family Justice Centre, One Safe Place. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not ask you to be upstanding for Judge Barney McElholm.
Well, thank you very much, Anita, for that introduction. I too am an avid reader of certain columns in the Irish News, particularly Anita's and her frequent discourses on Radio Foyle as well. I am, of course, just checking up to see if I've been libelled again, but, and so far Anita hasn't libelled me. Well, congratulations to Foyle Women's Aid on your 40th anniversary, Mary, on behalf of all the other ladies. It's hard to believe 40 years. Some of the younger people here won't know what 40 years looks like or can't imagine. No, I didn't when I was younger, but if it gives you some idea of what happens over 40 years. 40 years ago, I was attending Freshers' Week in Queen's, and now look at me. I'm reliably informed I had a good time and enjoyed myself that week, but the details are somewhat scant. But the other thing that strikes me about 40 years ago, when I did actually attend some lectures, and in our first lectures, I noticed that there were probably more women than I thought were there, because I've been told that the law was mainly a male profession. But the fact is, my niece is now studying to be a solicitor. She just started her apprenticeship. And she tells me that in her year, and years subsequent to that, the majority of law students in Belfast are women. And it's not just a slight majority, but the greater majority. So like other fields of endeavour and professions, women are coming to the fore. Now, we recently had 2 High Court justices appointed, 2 excellent female QCs, and not before time. The fact was that up to now there simply weren't enough women in the law of sufficient seniority. But I think what one will see as time goes on, we've seen this elsewhere, such as Australia, New Zealand and Canada, that women will come more to the fore in the legal profession like they are in every other profession. And that can only be a good thing, because it will slowly but surely do away with ancient prejudices and misconceptions, and will bring fresh thinking to the law as well as everything else. And as my mother used to tell me, and my wife frequently tells me, and my daughter now tells me, women are much better at all these things than men anyway, so if we would just stand aside and let them all get on with it, we'd be better off. And as I say, the more I see if the way men have run the world for the last 2,000 years, I am inclined to agree. I want to speak to you briefly about the special listings arrangement pilot, which we started in November 2011. And again, Foyle Women's Aid were a driving force behind this. I get quite a lot of credit for all this because I'm the chair and maybe the public face of it. But I know, having worked in it from the start, that a driving force behind the listing arrangements pilot was Mary and her team at Foyle Women's Aid. And like so many other good initiatives that was brought forward by them, we work in conjunction with, of course, with Foyle Women's Aid, Court Service, PPS, PSNI, Department of Justice, Victim Support, Men's Action Network. There's a whole range of people that we work with and who form part of the stakeholders group overseeing the pilot. So there are a lot of people working in partnership and a lot of people to thank for the success that we've enjoyed. The way the pilot works is this. At the first appearance in the court list, the case is flagged up either by the prosecutor or maybe I will ask, is this a domestic violence case? If so, it is then listed, any adjournments are listed into a special review court that we have on the first and third Wednesday. The purpose of having a special review court is to concentrate on those cases and try to make sure that they're pushed forward as quickly and as efficiently as possible so that the case comes to a hearing as quickly as possible. Because one of the tactics employed by perpetrators is to string it out so that victims get frustrated with the court process. They fall by the wayside. They think nobody cares. They think no one's pursuing the case on their behalf. And they just fade away. So as part of the attempt to combat that, we try to get those cases listed as soon as possible. And to that end, we have a special contest day, which is every second Tuesday in the month and every fifth Tuesday if there is one. Now, if for example, due to witness difficulties, we find that a contest is going to be put off for maybe several months, well, then I will make a special listing on an earlier day. The whole point of the special contest days is so we can concentrate resources. Foyle Women's Aid can send along a mentor, support worker, someone who's befriended the victim and whom the victim trusts. Victims support, witness support can provide a special room with the NSPCC building across the streets. They don't even have to come into the courthouse. They don't have to run the risk of meeting the perpetrator or the posse of people the perpetrator may bring with them. If you'll excuse me, I'm labouring under a heavy cold here, so it means that Foyle Women's Aid can also provide, where necessary, transport to and from court. When One Safe Place opens, there'll be a creche facility, and the One Safe Place will be just down from the courthouse. It will be somewhere where witnesses can wait, secure in the knowledge that they're not going to be intimidated, either verbally or physically, by the perpetrator or his supporters. And they don't have to worry about who's looking after the kids. It's not a case of saying, I can only come between 10 and 12, but then I have to go to pick the kids up. The support services that Foyle Women's Aid will provide, particularly when One Safe Place is opened, will help the court in the sense that victims will feel it easier to come to court. It will be less of a traumatic experience for them. It'll be a more welcoming place. Practically and logistically, it'll be easier. Because sometimes we find that injured parties don't come to court on the day of a contest for very simple reasons. Can't get somebody to look after the kids. Or maybe they live out in Strathfoyle and they just find it difficult, they've no transport, find it difficult to get in. So there are all sorts of things that go on under the surface. The public see what goes on in the court, but they don't see all the other work that's going on behind the scenes, the excellent work done by Foyle Women's Aid and by others working in partnership to facilitate the injured parties and their witnesses coming to court and getting justice. Now, the PPS help as well. They have specially trained prosecutors. They have sensitivity training. They don't adopt old-fashioned attitudes such as, look, come here, give your evidence and go. They try to understand the trauma that the victim has experienced and continues to experience. Again, the PSNI have trained people who understand how victims feel and victims' needs. And what we try to do in the court, and as part of this pilot scheme, is to listen to the victims. Because that's where we will really learn how to change the court processes so that victims will feel more comfortable and more ready to come to court and give their evidence. Victims are under all sorts of pressures. They have threats of physical violence from the perpetrator's family. Not coming from Derry, I found it strange when I first did come here, how everybody lives beside each other. In the one street you'll have grandparents, parents, siblings. So a woman came in to me in one of my early days here looking for a non-molestation order against her partner. And I said, I'll exclude him from the street. And she says, well, that'll do no good. Why? Well, his mother lives opposite. His brother lives next door. His sister lives up there. And they'll make my life hell. I'm going to have to move. So you run across practical problems like that. And something like that can dissuade a victim from ever coming to court and seeking help. But again, as in so many other areas, Foyle Women's Aid have come to the rescue. They will provide housing advice. They will contact the executive. They will negotiate a change of address. If the children, because the victim wants to move across the city, somewhere well away from the perpetrator, children may have to move schools. Again, Foyle Women's Aid will undertake that for them. When one safe place opens, all that will be under one roof. And it will mean that a victim can go in and tell their story once. They don't have to traipse around the benefits office, the housing executive, schools, telling their story over and over and over again to the point where they are sick, sore and tired of it themselves. They can go in and get all the help they need under one roof. Foyle Women's Aid have also negotiated with the universities to have a programme whereby students, law students, in conjunction with local solicitors, can provide legal advice within one safe place. Now, of course, some people qualify for legal aid, so they could get their own legal advice. Well, that's fine if that's what they want. But as other speakers have pointed out, domestic violence exists across all strata of society. And you will get people in, maybe a victim who has a job, but she may not be able to afford a solicitor. She may not qualify for legal aid, but a solicitor is going to cost hundreds of pounds, and she simply can't afford that if she's trying to set up, move accommodation. Maybe the children have to move school, new uniforms, etc., etc. So what we're hoping is that there will be a facility for that sort of person, the people who fall through the cracks of the legal aid system. And of course we have, of course can't criticise politicians, but due to the present government we have in the UK, legal aid, particularly in areas like family proceedings, divorce proceedings, separation proceedings, has been cut back. So more and more people are falling through the cracks. So it's very, very important that we get proper legal advice to people who need it. And again, one safe place will provide that. So our first small steps towards a specialist domestic violence court began with the listings pilot so we can concentrate all the resources possible into particular days, and it means we can provide a greater service to victims. Because all I want to do is to hear the victim's evidence. I will then have to decide who's telling the truth, what actually happened. Is there a strong enough case to convict someone? And if so, what to do with them? But I can't do that if I don't hear the evidence in the first place. And that is not justice by anyone's measure. And I firmly and passionately believe that if we're going to tackle the ills in society, we have to tackle the major problems that face us today: mental health issues, addiction issues, and domestic violence. Domestic violence, let no one mistake this, domestic violence is an evil. It is like a noxious weed whose roots extend down through the generations. And one can trace the problems and consequences of domestic violence back through the generations to maybe a great-grandfather or beyond. Because violence tends to beget violence. That's like the story the minister spoke so movingly about William, where we learn from the sins of our fathers. Well, I was a very lucky person. I learned at my mother's knee, and indeed at my father's. I never heard my father raise his voice to my mother, or indeed she to him. And that is why the other limb of this, as well as what we can do, what Women's Aid can do, and all our partners, the police, the prosecution, victim support, everything that we can do is reactive. If we're going to be proactive, we need to concentrate on education. Now, there are great moves in education at the moment. The first part of the Stroul campus in Omagh, Arvely Special School, has opened. The other second-level schools will be going there in 2020. September 2020, the place will be fully open, and our children will be educated around one campus. That, I think, is a first step towards healing the particular problems we have in this country. But in conjunction with that, we need a programme of education that teaches all our children to respect each other. It never occurred to me when I was growing up to think that a girl was in some way inferior to me, or worse than me, or less intelligent than me, or it just never, that's not the way I was brought up. It's not the way I was educated. Now, you do realise as you get older that subconsciously certain things do worm their way into your brain because of the influences of media, other people's attitudes. But if we were to educate our children to respect each other and to regard each other as equals, well, that may go a long way towards solving the problem of domestic violence. Although, as when I outlined this to my daughter, she laughed at me and said, "And what makes you boys think you'll ever be our equals?" But we can only try. But what I want to leave you with is the message that we are all trying to work together here. And over the years, over this last 40 years, Foyle Women's Aid have done sterling work. There's a lot more to do, but I know that with the right people at the helm, that work will be done, and we will succeed. Thank you.